Eric Schmidt has led Google for almost 20 years, starting in 2001, first as a CEO, then as an advisor for the parent company Alphabet. One of his tasks was to keep Google competitive during the years of rapid growth. Now Schmidt set for himself a bigger task, keeping America competitive. To do so, Schmidt started the Special Competitive Studies Project, or SCPC, a sort of think tank with the mission of addressing the biggest challenges that the country faces today in emerging technologies, artificial intelligence in particular. In this domain, the United States, according to Schmidt, are setting the pace for a very competitive environment.
Now, we have these extraordinary breakthroughs in terms of LLMs and frontier models, as they know, and everybody knows that I'm talking about GPT-4, Anthropic. We've set up a very, very interesting competition in the US among all of these players with huge stakes for them as businesses, but also for huge stakes for us as a nation.
The scope of the SCPC, however, goes beyond AI, as its mission is to identifying key issues, clarifying the nation's objectives, and suggest strategies and actions to ensure that the US stays ahead in the tech-driven economy. The last meeting of the SCPC did not get much coverage from the general or social media, and yet there were topics and speakers of interest, like NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. Eric Schmidt opened the sessions giving an optimistic view of possible scenarios. Jensen Huang instead gave more specific details about what make these scenarios possible. Here is Eric Schmidt.
I want you to think about, can you imagine if we had an AI doctor that made our current doctors more effective? There's a doctor shortage if you haven't noticed it. And wouldn't it be amazing if the poorest level of education doctors, of which there are in various parts of our country, were aided in their care were better? And wouldn't it be better if the top doctors had somebody, not a human, but somebody to give them some advice in the very tricky situations that doctors present? That's an AI doctor. Wouldn't it be even nicer if that doctor spoke every language, could deal with every culture and everyone's health problems globally? And wouldn't it be nice if it was free, right? There's every reason to think that that's achievable. Every reason to think that if we combine the work we're doing now in specialized areas of medicine, we can achieve that. And of course, it has to get regulated for safety and things like this. What about education? We spend an awful lot of time in our country complaining about the state of our education. Why don't we just fix it? And not with the usual mechanisms, but rather by coming up with an AI tutor. And this is not an AI tutor that replaces teachers, and we don't replace doctors either. We don't have enough teachers. We have the same problem. But what they do is they get better ways of teaching in the student's language. And we all know that everybody learns slightly differently. And so the system is gamified in such a way, the way the gaming works, is it figures out the way you best learn and then delivers it and gets you to your highest potential. You can't argue against me. It's obviously good to take everyone and get to their top potential. Society would be so much more strong. And we can debate all sorts of things about education, but at the end of the day, why don't we just solve the problem using AI? The teachers actually, when you talk to the head of the teachers union, she says she wants this. They want the teachers to be more productive because they actually care about what they're doing. It's obvious.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was a remote guest at the event, and he explains in a more practical way how these scenarios are accomplished. What we learn is that beyond science and education, any company in any business will use generative AI to unlock the production of intelligence beyond our imagination. Take a listen.
For the vast majority of the last 30 years or so, people thought of data centers as a place where you store files and where you might be able to might do some computing. But I feel that long term, it is very likely that almost every company will learn how to use generative AI, how to harness this capability, and produce intelligence. And what I mean by that is, if you abstract out what NVIDIA does for a living, you know, there are all these electronics and software that sits inside a data center. You apply electricity to it, and tokens come out. And so if you simply reduce the problem that we do with raw data that comes in and valued tokens that comes out, we're really a intelligence manufacturing system. It's no different than water goes in, steam comes out. Water goes in, electricity comes out. You apply fire. Oil goes in, crude goes in, and refined gasoline comes out. And so in the future, you're going to have data that goes into a building, and that building is going to do basically one thing. And it's going to work all day, all night, and it's going to produce intelligence that we apply, in certain amounts to almost every application that we do.
The SCPC is just one of the many projects undertaken by Eric Schmidt. In his position as advisor and board member of many institutions, including the Department of Defense, and from his experience as a leader at Google, Schmidt is probably one of the most credible sources to anticipate future scenarios. Here he speculates what the future could look like for the individuals.
The next thing that will happen after we get the doctor and the tutor and the sciences fixed is we're going to start having various forms of very interesting stepwise intelligence. And these systems will be able to give you recipes. They'll be able to say, how do I solve this problem? How do I solve that problem? And you'll see the beginning of thinking. And these are not conscious. I'm not making any claim like that. Please don't write that down and don't tweet it out. The system will have to make a decision. Step one, what do we do? Step two, what do we step three? That's a little bit like humans. Now, eventually what will happen, and this is more speculation, is that you're going to have savants. And these savants will be specialized. There'll be a chemistry savant and a physics savant. And what I'll say to the chemistry savant is, learn more chemistry, solve new problems. Today, they can't do it because they can't do math properly. But the AI is adding what are called tools, which allow it to call out to get mathematically correct answers. The combination of LLMs and tools and other specialized approaches are going to give us these kinds of savants. They're not going to replace chemists. They're going to make chemists do more chemistry. My own prediction about all of this is that at the end of the day, we're going to say that the AI age doubled the productivity of everything. And by that, I mean us. So if you're a writer, you'll be able to write twice as much, or twice as higher quality, maybe that's better. If you're a business person, you should be able to double your profits. If you're a scientist, you should be able to accelerate your rate of discovery. And the reason I said a half is we have early evidence, for example, that programmers' productivity is near doubled, right? That they can literally they can sketch out what they want and the computer can finish it. And they roughly report a doubling of productivity. I said this to my friend, the famous economist, and he said, oh my God. And I said, why are you so upset? And he said, we don't have models of more than 2 to 3% productivity increase. And I said, well, maybe that's your next research project for your graduate student. And he said, yes. He now has a whole bunch of postdocs and grad students trying to figure out what does the world like if my prediction, which is obviously optimistic, that our individual productivity doubles in our lifetime. No one's ever seen that before. This is the power of artificial intelligence. The reason that I'm so happy about this, and I've run over, I want to finish up, is that we're at one of these moments where you can feel it's going to change again.
All these developments are made possible by faster computer processors. On the other hand, the same processors require a ton of energy to operate. If you follow this channel, you know that energy is an issue we addressed in a recent video, and you can find it at the link above. For Jensen Huang, however, the issue will not be relevant for long, as according to him, it can be solved. Take a listen.
And so there's a belief system that AI takes a lot of energy. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. AI is supremely energy efficient. Now, the reason for that is because a few people train the language models. A few people train the models, but many can operate the models. And when you operate the models, you save an enormous amount of energy. And the reason for that is because you do it so efficiently in predicting the output. You're not going through a whole lot of principled mathematics, you're just predicting the output. And so in the case of our climate simulation system or emulation system, not a simulation, but an emulation system, we're able to predict weather and climate so effectively that the amount of energy we use is dramatically reduced. And so this is an area that I think a lot of people misunderstand about AI, and I hope that there's a lot deeper understanding of this area where we realize that pushing forward into AI it's the best way for us to reduce the energy consumed of computing and for a whole bunch of other things. And so, anyways, I'm excited about AI for science. I'm excited about AI for biology.